All right, let's get into our first big story. Now, the records show that the monies Nigeria is spending on importing food into this country is increasing by the day, by the week, by the month, and by the year. So it calls for concern, and a lot of people are talking about this. But however, we have guests in the studio to talk about this. We have joining us right now an agriculture business consultant, African farmer Mogaji. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's nice to see you. Right, and joining us from our Abuja studio is an economist, Aliyu Audu. Aliyu, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, nice to have you. And we also expect the public affairs analyst, Andrew Ajayi, to join us from our Port Harcourt studio, but we'll let you know when he's on ground. Now, African farmer, let me start with you on this. Now, when we have to import and import and import and import so much, and the cost is increasing, the quantity is increasing, the cost is increasing, one thing that comes to mind is maybe the African farmers, not you necessarily, but farmers in Nigeria are maybe not farming enough. Maybe they're farming less and less.
Yes, that's the true statement.
Okay.
More people are leaving the agricultural sector. And it's not only Nigeria. 2014, when I was in the USDA in America, we were told that less than 4% feed America now also. People are moving out of the sector. Climate change is a major reason why this is happening. But around here, the major reason is the previous political will and governments across board are focusing and pulling their weight in agriculture. But you know the story is changing gradually.
Okay, Aldo, let's bring you in here. The the import bill for Africa annually actually is about $45 billion. That's what Africans spend to import food. So what is the big deal for Nigeria, really?
Well, for Nigeria is spending about 6.6 trillion, which is about 22 billion on food importation. And you know, this is we are actually the second largest importer of rice, the largest importer of wheat. We import sugar and a lot of other products, even milk. We import milk. So I think what the situation is that too little is being done in the agricultural sector. We are not investing enough in the agricultural sector. As we are talking about diversification, we are not investing much in that. Farmers are still undertaking peasant farming. We have a lot of land, and a lot of resources should be dedicated to our system farmers, to be able to engage in large-scale agricultural production. As he said, in America, about 4% of America is feeding the whole population, and there's even more to export. Why is that? Because they are engaging in large-scale agricultural farming. That's what we're not doing. We're not going into large-scale agricultural and commercial farming. That is the problem affecting us, and that's why we're still importing things that we can even produce locally, like rice, milk, sugar. We're still importing that. So until a lot of attention is paid into agriculture, investment is made in agriculture, don't see us going very far. This was done in Chile, it was done in Brazil in the 80s, and Chile was chosen as the World Bank example for agricultural development. So these are policies we need to copy. We need to be serious and be aggressive with the agricultural sector so that we can really implement diversification. We can really go into diversification proper that we have been talking about. So these are the reasons why we see that we're still relying on import shamefully. Thank you.
Okay. African farmer, let me come back to you on this. Now, when it comes to seeing agriculture as a business,
Okay.
we expect that just as an average Nigerian will want to set up his fashion design shop, improve on it, go into ICT, improve on it, go into welding, fabrication, improve on it, and so on. The Nigerian farmers, we also expect them. If you have been involved in peasant farming or subsistence farming before, look for ways of improving yourself if you see it as a business. But this doesn't seem to be so.
You see, generally people seem to talk down on the rural farmers, saying that they are not approaching agriculture as a business. But when I don't understand, what they mean. If a man grows from maybe 1 plot to 30, 40 plots, sends 5 children to school, builds like 3, 4 houses, some buy cars, some buy bicycles, that's a business. It takes a lot of planning and execution to do that. However, the scale is what we're talking about. So agriculture has always been a business to the rural farmers, because I operate a lot across Nigeria with the rural farmers. So, but they need to scale up. Educate, they need to scale up.
That's what we're talking about.
Now, scaling up, we need to embrace what others have done. And it had happened in Nigeria before. During the Awolowo era, Nabza Zikwe, Tafawa Balewa, they scaled up a lot of these rural farmers, moving them from 2.5 acres, some to 10, some to 20, some to 30. When the river basin started, they moved farmers from 1 acre to about 10 acres, but there was infrastructure development. They brought what they needed to them. Farmers, most local rural farmers, don't understand business plans and co, but they know it. They can put it together. They can present proposals to developmental partners and banks. However, that is happening to the rural farmers. The urban educated people know how to write all the documents. They don't have the technical know-how. So at the end of the day, they are also not producing. 3 years after you find the average person stepping into agriculture, they run into diminishing returns. The business crashes. So it's the same, it's just that the approach is different. So the people who have money don't have technical know-how. They want to bring what's happening in developed countries and copy and paste. And so they are having the same issues. But guess what? The rural farmers have been consistent in making food available, however, not in the right quantity. So we need to bridge that gap now by having private sector professionals really getting the knowledge and doing what needs to be done in terms of production, processing along the value chain, which is start small, grow big. Don't want to do, you've not gone into farming before, you're embarking on a 500-hectare farm, or 1,000, 30,000. Somebody told me recently wants to go into 50,000 poultry business, and the person is into oil and gas. So how do you just bring oil and gas management to a sector that is heavily dependent on nature? So you are bound to have challenges, so we need to marry knowledge with practice.
Okay, I'll do. This is back to you now. Marriage, knowledge, and practice. The government is trying to do a bit of improvement in terms of allocation to the agri sector. For the 2017 budget, 92 billion naira has been allocated to that particular sector. Will that help in any way?
Well, as I said before, 92 billion naira being allocated to the agricultural sector, I think is too little, too late. Because if we're serious about the agricultural sector, we're talking about diversification. Diversification, and what is at the center of the diversification is agriculture. I mean, until you start spending between 10 to 20% of the budget, which is between 600 billion to 1.2 billion, on agriculture, you will not make a headway. If you're treating, in the budget, agriculture is one of the least ministries that got allocation to 92 billion. Last year, I think it was 29 billion. So I think we're speaking about agriculture, we're speaking about diversification, but not a lot of attention is being pushed towards agriculture. Not a lot of investment is being channeled towards agriculture. I think the government is trying its best, but it could do more. And the only way to get us to food sufficiency is to increase the allocation to agriculture, to 600 or 1.2 billion, so that we have a lot of land. We have 98 million square meters of hectares of land, and less than half of that is being used for agriculture. So we need to invest money because these rural farmers don't have that money and they don't have the know-how to get us to the point we need to get to, large-scale commercial agriculture. So the government needs to come in and partner like it's been done in other countries by providing the machineries and encouraging them to go into large-scale agriculture. If that is done, then you will notice that we can begin to take agriculture seriously. Without that being done, we're not going to go anywhere. And a lot of public PPP has to be encouraged. Government can't do everything, we know that, but they have to set up the right environment for the private sector to partner with government, because government is the largest owner of land in this country. So governments should cede away their lands to the private sector, partner with them so that private sector can come up with the machineries and develop this sector. This was done in Kwara. I think the previous Kwaran government went to Zimbabwe to bring, machineries and partner with the farmers, because a lot of the white farmers were driven, and they came to Kwara, and we saw there was some progress. So there's a lot of policies that could be implemented if the government is serious about diversifying into agriculture. We have a lot of potential. We have Benue, the food basket. We have a lot of states that have a lot of land for agriculture.
All right, Aliu, we're going to come back to you shortly. Aliu, we're going to come back to you shortly on this. Let's go on the break now. We're going out on TVC Entertainment, but viewers there can continue with TVC Breakfast on TVC Nigerian, Concert Channel 190 and DSTV Channel 418.
GoTV is 45 and SCTV 510. Glad to have you back. You're watching TVC Breakfast, and our first big story this morning is Nigeria food import bill and time to diversify. The government has been saying that it is time to put our words really to action. And our guest in the studio are African farmer Magaji, who is here with us in Lagos, and Aliu Aldo is in Abuja. We're expecting Andrew Ajayi from Port Harcourt. Very well, the time to give us more information.
Excuse me, I'll certainly take them to my wall, but the point there is, excuse me, Nigeria has the potential to be food sufficient, and according to the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, the country has more than 84 million hectares of arable land, and only about 40% of it is cultivated.
Nigeria is blessed with abundant and reliable rainfall in more than 2/3 of its territory and has some of the richest natural resources for agricultural produce in the world. But despite this, Nigeria has remained a large food importer.
Now let's make it clearer with figures, facts and statistics. I'll take you to my wall now so we have a better perspective of what we are. All right, let's go into this now. Now, during the pre-independence struggles and shortly after independence, agriculture was the mainstay of the nation's economy, though selectively developed with preferences for cash crops against food crop. At that time, we had groundnuts, rubber, we had cocoa, and we had palm fruit. And these were spread across parts of the country. Now, Nigeria was the world's largest producer of groundnuts and palm oil in the 60s, and the second largest exporter of cocoa then at the time. And the country was also self-sufficient in food production. Unfortunately, things have changed. We used to see the groundnut pyramids in the north, and it used to be a wonderful sight to behold. In fact, apart from just being agriculture, a lot of people just travel to the north in Kano to have a look at what the pyramids there look like. Now let's move on. Now, according to African Development Bank, Africa imported food items worth $35 billion in 2015. And the president of African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, said Africa's annual $35 billion food import figure could hit $110 billion by 2025 if concerted efforts are not made to halt the huge dependence on imported food. Now, the issue of GMO is there. We'll get into that as we get along, but let's see what's going on here. Not only has Nigeria become import dependent for food, prices of foodstuff have been rising steadily over the years, and Nigeria earns a paltry foreign exchange from agriculture, even as massive importation of food, especially rice, wheat, sugar, and fish, has continued to bleed the nation's economy, with the four items accounting for a whopping 1 trillion naira loss to the nation annually. Now you have rice there, you have wheat, fish, and sugar there. Now, dairy products, flour, tomato paste are also imported in large quantities annually. Now, let's move on. We also see that, in fact, Nigeria is sub-Saharan Africa's biggest importer of wheat, sugar, and rice, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Now, Nigeria is the largest importer of U.S. hard, red, and white wheat, worth 635 billion naira annually. The world's number 2 importer of rice at importer of rice at 356 billion naira, 217 billion on sugar, and 97 billion on fish. So that's a breakdown. It's really a huge one. Now let's move on in here. Now, Nigeria's foreign reserve fell to an 11-year low of $24.8 billion in 2016, and the country is looking for an end to the importation of food items that could be grown locally and cut down on the food import bill by raising import duties on luxury goods and food items that can be produced locally. Now, let's go on in here. Yeah, government says the move was done to encourage Nigerians to patronize made in Nigeria goods. Major items affected in the duty increase include sugar. Yeah, we have sugar and sugar cane. Yeah, we have sugar cane. We have salt, and we have alcoholic spirit beverages and tobacco there. Yeah, to cut down from 10% to 17%, between 20% to 60%, and rice between 10% to 60% in there. But let me ask African farmer this. Now, this deliberate effort by government to curtail importation of goods, or importation of some of the food items we have talked about and others we didn't even mention here, is it yielding any results so far from what you're seeing?
I would not say it's yielding the desired results, because in the budget must reflect, where you're focusing on. So if you have like 92 billion to the agricultural sector, it's maybe less than 10% of what is required, considering the negligence of the sector. So irrespective of how beautiful the package of what government talks about, if you don't put the money behind it, the private sector will not rush into that direction. So once it reflects in the budget that, government is putting 20-30% of the budget to agriculture, the private sector knows that's how we can make money. So they tilt towards there, but without the budget reflecting that, 92 billion will not buy the tractors required, for the transformation agenda that the government is pursuing. So it's a different thing to have. The 92
billion is not just even for the capital project, it's for both recurrent and capital. Really.
So the government is putting so much money in seminars, the symposiums and co, but they're not putting the money there. I can tell you, I believe the Ministry of Agriculture will be frustrated, because you have people with zeal and knowledge there, but when there's no capital to execute it, it will be frustration. So next year, there are already clear and present danger with the high price of dollar. What that means in Nigeria, especially southwest, outside the north, most of the labor force comes from Benin Republic and Togo. And because the price of naira doesn't have that value again, most of them from mid last year, from like May, they stopped coming to Nigeria to work. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring Andrew Ajayi in now from Port Harcourt. Glad to have you join us today on TVC Breakfast, Andrew Ajayi. The issue of luxury goods, one of them, of course, has to do with rice and the spike we are talking about this morning. Sugarcane and salt moved from 10% to 70%, and of course rice to 60%. And don't forget that you can no longer bring in rice from the land border. Now put this together and what the Nigerian government has in place in terms of alternative to rice production. Is that a good thing at this point in time? Andrew Ajayi, can you hear us?
Well, I saw him shaking his head. I wonder if he can hear us now. Andrew, good morning. Can you
go ahead now.
Hear us?
Andrew, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay, you can hear us. Okay, we want your opinion on the issue of the hike in the tariffs for rice, importation of rice from 10% to 60%, sugarcane and salt from 10% to 70% without alternative, as we have in Nigeria today. Would that help?
Well, the system, the network seems to be a little bit problematic, but from what I know, so far so good. I think the government on its part and the totality of Nigerians, we must have a national vision and focus for ourselves as a people, so that with the vastness of arable lands that we have and the resourcefulness of our young people and even the people of the middle age, I think we can do better than the people that we have persistently, import rice from their country. So I think that if we are striving to say, let us have, like 10% of rice importation in Nigeria, I think it is a good thing. But the problem I have with some of these policies at times is that it is only when a people in a nation have come to a near state of self-sufficiency that they can now say, we are no longer going to collect goods and services from the hitherto country that goods and services have been collected from before to feed the nation or to service the nation. But once it is not like that, that we are not producing this, quantum of goods and services to go around the citizens of the nation adequately without them going through unnecessary pains of price hike, okay, then I think we can now say we have come to Uhuru. Like this current Christmas that we enjoyed, for God's sake, how much did we buy rice? You know it, that we bought rice some time ago for about 9,000, 10,000. But of recent, it rose to about 20-something thousand naira. All from the pockets of the Nigerian. And it is not really the best. So I think that it has to do with the methodology that is being adopted by government.
All right.
I would have said that
Andrew,
the Abakaleke rice, the Ofada rice, the rice that is produced in Edo State and any other part of the country that is producing rice should have gotten to a state of near sufficiency for the people, stored in the various silos, so that when we go back
all
there,
right, Andrew, let me put you on hold a little bit. Let me put you on hold and then we come back to this. Let's go on a break and we come back on the program. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast. Right, if you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast, and we're looking at the import bill, food import bill in Nigeria that is rising and rising and rising. And we have with us in the studio African farmer Mogaji. He is with us here in our Lagos studio headquarters here, and in our Abuja studio we have Aliu Audu, an economist, joining us there, and we also have Andrew Ajayi joining us from our Port Harcourt studio. Now, Audu, let me bring this question to you before I go on with my wall analysis in here. Now, we know that we have a shortfall as to local producers of food items or crops, whatever, but we don't really have investors interested. You talked about private partnership earlier on, but where are these private investors, private players going into agriculture in Nigeria? Why don't we have a lot of that when we know there is a lot of market for it, there is a lot of conducive or convenient land for it? Ali, I'm asking you that.
I can't hear anything. They're calling my name.
Aliu, all right, can you confirm that you can hear me now? Aliu Audu from Abuja studio. Okay, maybe before we get the line, let me take you back to my wall and then we go on with the analysis. We're talking about the import duties rising, sugarcane and salt rising from 10% to about 70%, and alcohol, spirit, beverages and tobacco rising from 20% to 60%, and rice rising from about 10% to 60% import duties. Now let's move on in here. Now let's look at some countries that Nigeria imports food items from. We have Malaysia. Malaysia is one country, and we also have Thailand. And when it comes to rice and sugarcane, some of them come from these, and Malaysia also the issue of oil. And natural rubber, coconut, bananas, and cassava, Thailand. Now, Thailand's dominant agricultural export crop is rice, cassava, pineapple, and maize. We also have, excuse me, we also have others. We have India, main agricultural produce are paddy rice, you have wheat, cow milk, vegetables, and potatoes. And now we also have China. Apart from India, we have China and produce there. We also have rice and vegetables, maize, wheat, potatoes, and watermelon. And one major concern from China precisely right now among Nigerians is the issue of plastic rice. Certainly, I know African farmer would want to talk about that as we get along. But let us even come home to the challenge that average Nigerian farmer faces that makes him or puts him on a disadvantage, even though he has all the arable land, fertile land in Nigeria, and so on. What are those challenges? Can you make us understand why they can't meet up?
Well, machineries. The average farmer wants to expand, but does not have the machineries. The machines that you have here, the tractors, are the big tractors that the farmers don't require. They need small tractors that is used in Thailand, in China. Most of the food produced there is not from commercial farmers, it's from small-scale farmers. There's what they call a two-wheel tractor, where the farmer is independent. The same tractor plows, arrows, uses for irrigation, he uses it to transport. The farmer is independent. So that's one. Inputs like fertilizers, input like chemicals, input like seeds. The average Nigerian farmer is frustrated because the good seeds are imported. I can categorically say any watermelon, any cucumber, I use the word any, consumed, the seed is imported from France, from Netherlands and America, and now Thailand. So when the farmer cannot buy good seeds, then there's an issue. So even if you spend all the money you require, you have the technical expertise, and you have wrong seed, the end result is garbage. So across the value chain, yes, road network, we can manage road network. If we have good yield and we harvest at the right time, the road is really not an issue. Transport logistics. The farmer does not have, they have, let me use the word, uneducated people controlling the transport network. So when the farmer wants to move the products in the produce in the morning, you find a lot of times that the farmer has, the transporters come to harvest in the morning. They take the like watermelon and go in the morning. They don't leave until evening, when they are running away from road safety, doing their legal job. You know, so at the end of the day, the quality of the product, has dropped. And so they are at the mercy of the transporters. So these are areas we need government that they don't need to put in money. They only need to enlighten the public, probably partner with TVC, to have dedicated programs showing people the value chains in which private sector can step in. And it doesn't require it being in the budget. They only need to budget for media to pay media. So there are many things that can be done that is not rocket science to show the private sector what to do and to put money there. So the farmer is at the receiving end, and that's the basis. So if we're copying, if we're talking about diversification, we need to copy it right. We need to copy Malaysia, we need to copy Thailand, copy what they do and paste it and follow through.
We'll be copying and pasting. Can't we write our own or even print ours or design ours?
It will take us more time.
Okay.
Because this is available online anyway.
All right.
Okay, let's go to Andrew Ajayi now and talk about the issue of fiscal monetary policies and trade policies. How do you think that can help? What we have in place in terms of access to credit for farmers and in terms of repayment of loan and the CBN's Anchors Borrower Scheme. Is that helping in any way? What policies can be put in place to help the farmers?
Well, thank you very much. Let me say that whatever it is, the people that are actually creating the bills, that is actually doing this bill in the National Assembly, I think they have good intention. But let the intention be centered on the fact that the interests of Nigeria and the Nigerian farmer is paramount. And again, what I think is important to bring out in this discussion is the fact that what does the Chinese, the Thailand, the Indians do very well that has to do with agricultural development in these countries that now enables them to begin to become the exporter of, you know, agricultural products and food like rice and grains to us in Nigeria, that we are the chief importers. Can we borrow a leaf from the administrations, the strategies and stratagems that were adopted by this country that enable them to become food self-sufficient so that they now export those food to us? If we can take a philosophical thinking on this matter to now extrapolate to our own collective benefit as a nation, I think in no distant time we will be returning to that good old days of the 60s when Nigeria as a country was regarded as a food producer in the sub-Saharan, West African country that we are, that was able to also supply to the world. Now, let me answer your question quickly by saying that why won't you give credits or support that is situated to feed the nation? Of a truth, as Nigerians, we are hungry because even the things that we produce in our own land, they are so expensive, we don't even have the economic power to purchase them. My dear two presenters in the studio, when you went to the Christmas purchases and New Year purchases that you did for your families, didn't you spend extra money to purchase some of all these things into your home the way I did?
Of course, we're Nigerians.
The hallmark of a nation, the hallmark of a nation, its administration and government at the federal, state and local government is nothing more than the security and welfare. And that welfare aspect, which also included security, has to do with food security. Today, we do not have food security in Nigeria. So quickly speaking, I think that what we should do to help our government is to talk the way we are talking, so that by the time they listen to us, they will be generated in them. They will be provoked to begin to go out there, to begin to do the right thing, so that when it is time for appreciation and evaluation, we'll be clapping for them to say, oh, they have truly done well. Okay. So it is only natural that whatever is necessary in terms of credit, soft landing for farmers, you should provide for them. I used to know that America, as a country, used to give their farmers great subsidy. But in Nigeria here, everything that has to do with subsidy that will enhance the masses' welfare has been thrown away. No one is being enhanced. No, everybody is just removing hands from masses' welfare. And yet, we are saying we are in a nation.
All right,
so
Andrew.
Can I ask here that what is the type of economic policy that we are practicing?
Yes, Andrew, let me put you on hold. Andrew, let me put you on hold a little bit, and then we come back on this. And when we come back, we've established our links with Aliu Audu in Abuja studio. We'll come back to you shortly. Let's go on a break. But don't forget, at the top of the hour will be time for the news update with Ni Oyelo. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast.
Glad to have you back. It is still TVC Breakfast and it's still food import bill in Nigeria, how skyrocketing that is, the effect of that, and how the tide can be changed. So we're looking at that this morning, and our guest here in the studio, African farmer Magaji, with such a peculiar name, is here with us in our Lagos studio, and Aliyu Audu, an economist, is in Abuja, and of course Andrew Ajayi from Port Harcourt. The question to you now is, Aliyu, really, we want more of economic policies, according to Andrew Ajayi, friendly fiscal monetary policies and trade policies that will promote diversification. Your thoughts on that, please?
Yes, we have been talking about diversification for some time now, and you know, that is not really happening, because in the concept of diversification, you have to be moving from one resource and investing in the other. In this case, we can say we're moving from oil to agriculture, most especially. Now, we need the government to come up with proper trade policies and education to show that, you know, they are investing money they are getting from oil into agriculture, which clearly that is not what I'm seeing in the 2017 budget, because it's only 92 billion that has been allocated to agriculture. We also need to see the legislative members of the Senate and House of Assembly. You know, that is not really happening, because in the concept of diversification, you have to be moving from one resource and investing in the other. In this case, we can say we're moving from oil to agriculture, most especially. Now, we need the government to come up with proper trade policies and education to show that, you know, they are investing money they are getting from oil into agriculture, which clearly that is not what I'm seeing in the 2017 budget, because it's only 92 billion that has been allocated to agriculture. We also need to see the legislative members of the Senate and House of Assembly passing legislation that compels the government to invest, to put up a lot of investment in agriculture, so that the government you know, can be hit from different sectors, and we can really focus on agriculture if we're going to save Nigeria. You know, we're not saying that now, so that needs to be done. And you know, we have been talking about diversification, and you know, not a lot is being invested in agriculture. Also, looking at banks, there need to be policies that will encourage banks to give loans to farmers.
Right, if you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast. We are discussing the food import bill that is rising in Nigeria. We have guests with us in the studio. Now, Ali, let's come back to you. I remember before we went on break, my colleague asked you earlier on concerning the kind of policies that can really encourage agriculture production back home. You were making a point earlier.
Yes, as I was saying, we have to have proper trade policies. You know, inclusive in that policy should be a situation whereby farmers are encouraged, provided the necessary loans to go into farming. Once you go into farming and you know, you have excess produce, the government should also guarantee that they'll buy over your stock, so that farmers don't think that when they overproduce, government, you know, they'll waste their produce. So these are social policies that government should have in place to guide and help farmers. We also have a situation where CBN, you know, we put funds. There was what they call the CAX, Commercial Credit Agricultural Scheme, with the CBN of about 500 billion for farmers. But what you find out is that farmers cannot access this loan because the requirement is too much. I was a banker for 12 years, and I didn't even witness one proper farmer come to access this loan. So what the government needs to do is to partner with the CBN and commercial banks alike to make this fund accessible to farmers. Once this fund is accessible, you don't have to have collateral or anything like that. You know, you should be able to access this fund but just by having a farm. And government should, you know, the bank should be able to set up an agri desk whereby, you know, they have officers that will work with farmers in the field and not just sit in the bank and issue these loans, but also go out to the field to monitor farmers that this job is done. And also to partner with the private sector in terms of bringing in tractors and, on loans and what have you. So if these policies are implemented, I think we're going to see a turnaround in the agriculture. The Senate should not sit down and, fold their arms talking about, one thing or the other, but also to focus on agriculture. We should see legislation being made on investment in agriculture. The Senate should twist the government's arm so that they should apportion at least 10 to 20% of the budget to agriculture. If this is being done, we'll see that there will be a lot of investment in agriculture, large-scale farming and commercial agriculture will commence, and this will provide food sufficiency for the country as well as employment. Also, I support the issue of banning importation of rice. If the government has gone a long way to trying to ban rice and some of this agricultural produce, but what I want to see is a total ban on rice. We have no business importing rice. I mean, if desperate time calls for desperate measures, why do you think China got to where they are today? Why do you think Malaysia got to where they are? Why do you think Chile got to where they are? They came up with desperate measures for the country. So this is what we need to do. We need to be very strict with importation, and a total ban on importation of rice is what we're looking for.
All right,
we have no
Aliyu.
business importing rice to eat, and helping other countries like Thailand and what have you.
Okay.
We have unemployment in Nigeria. We have food scarcity in Nigeria. So we should focus on increasing Nigerian production.
Okay.
This is what I mean
all
by
right.
import substitution industrialization. So the government should ban there should be a total ban on importation
Total ban on rice.
Either by sea or land.
All right, Aliyu, thank you very much. Let's get to Port Harcourt, where Andrew is. Now, Andrew, we all know that Nigeria remains the biggest market in everything at all in life. Nigeria remains the biggest market in Africa. Now, when it comes to consumption of locally produced any kind of food, government has been talking about that, but are Nigerians really ready to patronize and consume that locally made food?
Thank you, my brother Mike and Busolami. You see, there is so much I need to tell you here today, but time will not be available. I certainly know that. I want to say that for me, as a Nigerian, Christmas, when I went out to buy it, I ensured that it was a locally produced rice. So anywhere I enter as a Nigerian, I used to tell them, when they tell me I got foreign made, produced by Oyibo, I said no, I will not buy it because it was foreignly produced, but show me the one that is produced here in Nigeria so that we can grow. And the marketers will start laughing to say, oh, that is good, that is good. So what I'm saying in effect is that it depends on what our government is all about. I will continue to, talk like this so that I provoke in those who have opportunity today to lead us administratively so that we get out of hypocrisy, because it is hypocritical of governments at any level to come and say, let us go back to agriculture, whereas their own orientation has not been transmogrified, has not been transformed from that mentality of purchasing foreign goods to now appreciating Nigeria. The other point I want to make here to the public glaring is that people should go into agriculture. How do I mean? We have a lot of government people who have money, whether they stole it, whether they earned it legitimately. What do they do with this money? It's either they take it out of this country or they start building hotels. In fact, hotels is what they are building in Nigeria here. None of them want to go to farm. If I have such an amount of money the way they have, I think I should be able to get some hectares of land to say this talk of diversification into agriculture instead of me building hotels or engaging in cosmetics. Why don't I come to clear this land, plant tomatoes, plant beans, or plant any other product that can yield me some money and at the same time employ youth? So what I'm saying in effect is that we must be a people who are not hypocritical about the things that has to do with our collective development. Mike, I told you earlier, I said, what is it that Thailand is doing, India, and even China are doing that is making them self-sufficient? Can Nigeria understudy them and begin to bring that into our own nation? Because a lot of youth are going to the National Youth Service. A lot of them are leaving the universities, college of education, and polytechnics, and yet there is no work, and we are talking of agric. Why can't we do it in such a way that as these old men and women who are currently engaging in agriculture are getting old and can no longer come back to agriculture because of old age, they will not transfer to the new generations of farmers? And we must endeavor to engage ourselves in massive value reorientation to begin to appreciate agriculture. Because even though you say, let us educate Nigerians, Nigerians are already educated, and of course we will continue to be educated. What a people who are educated without no food in their tummy and their family, how will they succeed? We need food in Nigeria, and we have the land to be able to do so. So I want to use this opportunity to call on our president, our lovely president, Mr. Muhammadu Buhari, that they should go beyond all this continuous TV and radio talk of diversification. Let us see our ministers, our governors, let us see them going into the farms, practicing it, and let the youth copy them.
All right,
example.
Andrew.
That is the only way it will work.
Exactly.
You cannot tell a youth to go to agric, and at the end of the day...
All right, Andrew Ajayi, thank you very much. Andrew Ajayi, thank you very much for talking to us very passionately and very vigorously on that. We thank you for joining us this morning. I know African Farmer was agitating to say something, but let's go on a break and we'll come back to you, make your point on that. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast.
Glad to have you back. It's still TVC Breakfast, and we're still looking at food import bill in Nigeria. Aliyu Audu, our guest from Abuja, is still there, and African farmer Magaji is here with us in the studio. Andrew Ajayi, just from Port Harcourt, we just let him off the hook right now. So back to you, Aliyu, in Abuja. Let's talk about the CBN Anchors Borrow Scheme. You made mention of quite a lot of policies, and during the 2017 budget presentation, the president made some interesting observation. I'd like to read a piece of it for you here, if you can just be patient. It says, talking about the progress made in Nigeria, it says, I'm talking about the farmers who today are experiencing bumper harvest, the manufacturers who substituted imported goods for local materials, and so on and so on. To the president's mind, the farmers are enjoying bumper harvest. That's what the president said. And of course, according to him, thanks to the CBN initiative, the Anchors Borrow Scheme. In your own view, in your own estimation, has that policy, has that initiative succeeded in any way?
As I said, I was a banker for 12 years, and throughout my banking career, I hardly saw any major farmer access this facility. I mean, if the president is saying that, you know, farmers are facing bumper harvest, why are we then having a bill, an import bill of 6.6 trillion importing food? So we have to move from the stage of subsistence farming to commercial farming, to feeding the whole country, and moving back to where we were before, of having huge granite pyramids, importing cocoa, rubber, and what have you. Now, the banks and the central bank, in my view, has failed in this respect, because, you know, not a lot of farmers can access this facility. So it's important that it is done. It is, you know, the honorable gentleman from Port Harcourt was talking, what are the policies that China, Malaysia, Brazil are implementing that, you know, their farmers are doing very well? That is, having access to this facility without asking for collateral. You cannot use a conventional banking approach to approach a farmer that doesn't have anything. So we need to get down and dirty, meaning we need to go out there to meet the farmers and help them, work with them, regardless of providing, you know, the money. We also have to assist them. What is the essence of having the Nigerian Agricultural Insurance Corporation? What is that for? We have the Agric Bank. This is where they have to come into play. They have to have enough staff, employ people to go out into the farmlands and assist the farmers, work with the farmers, form associations. If, again, these farmers overproduce, buy them over, give farmers insurance and, on their produce. So this needs to be done. This is not being done. The only people that can access these funds are people, people that are already doing very well, top businessmen. And majority of Nigerians are not top businessmen. Majority of farmers are, don't have much. So we need to target these people. The policies and of the government needs to target these particular people, and we have to go out there into the rural areas and provide these tractors, partner with these people. This is the only way we can succeed. This is what has been done in China, in Malaysia, in Thailand, and that is what we need to do. And as I said, there has to be a total ban on importation of rice.
All right,
Aliyu. You have to protect the local industry.
Aliyu, thank you very much this morning for joining us.
All about.
Yes.
If you don't protect the local industries, how then do you expect to be able to encourage them to produce?
All right, so Aliyu, we get your point on the total ban. You re-emphasize that again. Thank you for joining us on the program this morning, Aliyu Audu from Abuja. The African farmer, when he talked about the total ban on importation of rice and some of these things, I saw your reaction.
You see, as Nigerians, we need to get beyond our comfort zones. Now, when people talk about bans or no bans, if you go to the rural farmer, question you will ask us, can we produce 20% of the rice we require? If we cannot produce 20% or 30%, when we ban it, what would happen? When we buy it, we just allow the middlemen to make more money. Now, we can't ban anything that we're used to. Rice, wheat. The harmattan this year is not as intense as it should be. So I used to produce wheat in Adija Jamari in Jigawa, so this is practical. Okay? As of 2002, the weather change. Climate change is not new. It's over almost 20 years now. Now the climate change, so when the wheat was bringing out what we eat, the grains, the climate change, and it needs a measure of cool environment weather, and the climate change, so that dropped the yield by like 50%. So all this ban or no ban, climate change cannot even allow us to effectively place a ban. By the way, we have signed many treaties. I've been in USAID trainings, and you have documents that we have signed many international treaties that we cannot ban, we can only raise tariff. And when you are increasing tariff, there must be backup. If we have empty silos, we don't have 50% of the silos we require. So that means that even if we produce enough, we can't store. So if you cannot store and we don't have backup, if it does not rain, if we normally have like 5-6 months, if we have 3 months like is happening in Brazil, in California, there would be major crisis. We've seen food scarcity. We've not seen anything with food scarcity. It's just price now. So in 2017, there are a couple of challenges coming up. Labor, input, many things that we need to pay attention to. So we can't ban. It's easier to sit down and say, let's ban. But when you get to the field, can we produce? We don't have quality fertilizers. We don't have all the inputs. So can we ban? We need the regulatory agency.
The president said that they are working with Morocco to get fertilizers for Nigeria. Is that a good place? Is that a good source? That's what the president said.
We have these things here. We only need to empower strengthen the organizations who are doing it here. Why go to Morocco when we have these guys in Port Harcourt? We have 2 Indoramas come to Nigeria. Yeah, so when we have them here, instead of going to Morocco, put those funds into those people and let them produce at subsidized prices. So it's still part of the challenge. We're still looking out and not strengthening the people here. When during the last administration, the companies producing fertilizers here was not patronized by government. They were patronizing importers. So they were taking their fertilizers to Liberia and other African countries.
From Nigeria.
From Nigeria. So we know it really It doesn't sit well with me when we talk about many things. Rice, as simple as rice, in Aso Rock, in this local governments, all they have huge budgets to entertain. Are we eating locally produced foods? If in Aso Rock and all other government agencies are not,
and even government houses,
are not consuming locally produced products, then any policy we make won't work. And by the way, we have a lot of policies. Dr. Akinwumi Adesina did a fantastic job with that. We only need implementation. We've been talking about diversification, but we've not been implementing the diversification.
Or continuity, really.
Yeah. So basically, not only government needs to take responsibility, people like me also need to take responsibility of not going out of your way beyond business. We need a measure of patronage, to be patriotic, to do things on NGO platforms and really throw out your passion. So until we come together, we're not going anywhere.
All right, now how about the issue of universities of agriculture, agri-research institutes? We have all of these things scattered across this country. We have NIFO in Benin, for instance. We have the rubber institute. We have those in Ibadan. We are everywhere. So when you talk about yields, when you talk about input, when you talk about research, good seeds, what are they doing if we can't make use of what they are coming up with?
It's amazing the kind of knowledge available in Nigeria and the research completed waiting on the shelves in most of these research institutes. Foreign governments pay our researchers, our professors, take them out on sabbatical, pay them heavy, tap their knowledge. About 9 years ago, I went to Ghana in search of untapped opportunities that we can bring to Nigeria. I discovered some things when I came back to my colleagues that were contemporaries in school, in the College of Agriculture, to tell them about what I found, my discoveries. They took me to the bank, seed bank, and said, this is what you are talking about. We've completed all those things. We only need to commercialize or get the private sector to commercialize it. So government needs to put in funds. Like I said earlier, government needs to leverage on media, partner with the media houses to showcase what is available. So that, take for instance, for me personally, instead of focus on rice, you only increase carbohydrate. If you focus on the amount of money going into it. Now, if we go into maize, it has an effect on protein. Over 40–50% of what the content of a livestock feed is maize. So already this year, the price stayed at 150, 170, between 150 and 170 all through the year. Normally it's 60 naira, 50 naira all through 2016. So now, 2017, there was what you call armyworm that devastated about 40–50% of the maize produced in Nigeria. So 2017 is interesting because maize will also be very expensive. So we need to begin to, use what we have and not talk about what we have.
Right.
We need to be practical and go in-house to do it.
Okay, African Farmer Mortgagee, thank you very much for coming on TVC Breakfast this morning. Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
we also thank Aliu Audu for joining us from Abuja studio, and Andrew Ajayi joined us earlier from Port Harcourt. We'll go on a break, and when we come back, we'll be discussing our next topic. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast.